Hey guys, today we're going to start Unit 4 B1A video lesson about Unit 4 Lesson A and B, right? This is the last unit of your second trimester. Let's start talking about the topic of Unit 4. It's about mind and behavior. So let's learn some personality adjectives that we use in English to describe the character and the behavior of a person.
Describe your character and personality. If you're nice and friendly to other people, you're warm, kind, pleasant, sweet, and good-natured. And if you're not, you're cold, unkind, unpleasant, horrible, unfriendly. If you love communicating with other people, you are an extrovert, which means you're sociable and outgoing. People who like talking are talkative and communicative. If you don't like communication, you are an introvert, which means you are quiet, reserved, shy, or taciturn. If you are relaxed in your attitude or manner, you are positive, optimistic, cheerful, easygoing, laid back. And if you are not, you are gloomy, pessimistic, negative, miserable, or tense. People who think about others' feelings are sensitive, tactful, thoughtful, delicate, caring. And the opposites are insensitive, tactless, heartless, cruel, and cold-hearted. People who prefer telling the truth are honest, truthful, sincere, frank. And those who don't are dishonest, liars, insincere, deceitful. So a liar is a noun. If you are open to new ideas and different views, you're open-minded, unbiased, flexible, and tolerant person. And the opposites are narrow-minded, biased, bigoted, intolerant. If you know what you want and intend to reach your goals, you are determined, strong-willed, strong-minded, resolute, confident. And if you don't, you are undetermined, weak-willed, indecisive, irresolute, unsure. People who love working and work a lot are hardworking, industrious, diligent, ambitious. Ambitious people usually have a plan for life. And the opposites are lazy, idle, sluggish, unambitious. Those who learn and understand things quickly, rational people, are intelligent, clever, bright, and smart. And those who don't are unintelligent, stupid, or foolish and silly. But foolish and silly are not so strong in meaning as unintelligent and stupid. If you care for other people, you're an altruistic person, which means you're unselfish, considerate, and noble. And if you don't, you're selfish, self-centered, and vain. These are people who think only of themselves. If people trust you, you're probably a very reliable, trustworthy, loyal, or faithful person. And the opposites are unreliable, untrustworthy, disloyal, unfaithful. If you like spending money on yourself and other people, you are a generous person, which is a positive word. But if you just waste your money, you're extravagant. And if you don't like spending money, you are probably a very economical person, which is a good word. Or mean, which is a negative word. In their attitude to other people and in their behavior in general, people can be respectful, modest, or humble. And the opposites are disrespectful, arrogant, or bossy. Arrogant people usually look down on other people. You should know the difference between the two words sensitive and sensible because they look similar. Sensitive means tactful, responsive, and sensible means reasonable or practical. So sensitive is more about feeling, and sensible is more about thinking.
So, continue talking about behavior and attitudes of a person. We're going to do this exercise to understand a little about some expressions related to behavior. Let's check. Number 1. When you're out on the street, what kind of behavior really gets on your nerves? 2. What kind of behavior do you think is unreasonable from neighbors? Number 3. Do you assume that strangers are kind or that they are mean and will take advantage of you? So let's check the meaning of these expressions. Get on your nerve. It means to irritate or annoy you. Unreasonable means beyond the limit of acceptability. Mean is unkind or cruel. Take advantage of means to get benefits exploiting someone by making unfair demands, right? Let's learn more vocabulary about adjectives that describe personality and behavior. You're going to match the adjectives here from numbers 1 to 12 with the definitions from letters A to letter L, right? So, pay attention to the adjectives that are in bold. So you're going to check the adjectives here with their definitions. We have letter A, superior, B, mature, C, unkind, D, passionate, E, difficult to influence, F, friendly and likable, G, unfair, H, easily annoyed or made angry, I, careless, J, controlling, K, kind and considerate, and L, not serious or important, ridiculous.
4.1 1.
Thoughtful.
K.
So number 1, letter K. A thoughtful person is kind and considerate, right?
2.
Bossy.
J.
Number 2, bossy means controlling, right?
3.
Clumsy.
I.
Number 3, clumsy means careless, all right? The person that does not pay attention, all right?
4.
Unreasonable.
G.
Number 4, unreasonable means unfair.
5.
Mean.
C.
So number 5, mean equals to letter C, unkind.
6.
Stubborn.
E.
A stubborn person is someone who is difficult to influence, letter E, right?
7.
Charming.
F.
Number 7, charming means friendly and likable, letter F.
8.
Bad-tempered.
H.
A bad-tempered person in number 8 is someone who is easily annoyed or made angry, letter H, right?
9.
Silly.
L.
Silly, letter L, equals to a not serious or important or ridiculous person, right?
10.
Arrogant.
A.
Arrogant means superior, all right?
11.
Enthusiastic.
D.
Enthusiastic means passionate.
12.
Responsible.
B.
And the last one, responsible means mature, right? Which of these adjectives have a positive idea, positive meaning? Let's check. Thoughtful, that means a kind person and considerate. Charming, a friendly and likable person. Enthusiastic, it means passionate. And responsible, that is mature. The others have a negative idea, right? Let's go ahead. So, let's practice what we have learned. You're going to complete the expressions in bold with the correct form of the verbs in the box. Remember to use appropriately. So we have the verbs get, stand, upset, forgive, boast, drive, take, praise, encourage, and take. You're going to pay attention to the expressions and the one that best matches each one complete the sentences, right? Let's check the answers.
4.2. 1,
Bob wasn't the one who came up with the original idea, but he still took credit for his colleagues' work at last week's meeting.
2,
Lucy's teacher said her term paper was fantastic. He really praised her for her achievement and even encouraged her to start a PhD next year.
3,
Ron really gets on my nerves. I can't stand his attitude. Yesterday, he embarrassed me, and I'll never forgive him for doing that.
4,
Gary's new at the company, so his boss makes lots of unreasonable requests and takes advantage of him.
5,
Claire and Sophie can't be roommates because Claire loves cats, while Sophie can't stand them. She says cats drive her crazy.
6. Julio sometimes upsets people by constantly talking about how rich he is. Nobody likes the way he keeps boasting about his wealth.
So number one, the expression take credit for, when you get the benefits. Somebody created something, but you get the benefits for that, right? In this way, Bob took credit for his colleagues' work, right? Number two, the teacher said her term paper was fantastic, so he really praised her for her achievement. He congratulated her and even encouraged her to start a PhD next year. Encourage means to motivate, right? Number three, get on my nerves. Number three, it's wrong. So wrong gets on my nerves. It means that I can't tolerate, I can't stand his attitude, right? And when I say that I'll never forgive him for doing that, it means that I won't forget what he did. 4. The expression is take advantage of someone, in this case. Gary is new at the company, so his boss makes lots of unreasonable requests. It means that he requests a lot of things without any reason, you see, without any sense. Exploits him a lot, taking advantage of him, right? Number 5, we have two expressions here. Can't stand equals to you don't tolerate, you hate, and drive her crazy. She says cats drive her crazy, so they make her feel insane. Number 6, the expression is upset someone. When you upset someone, you irritate, you annoy. And Julio sometimes annoys people, irritates people, upsets people. By doing what? By talking about how rich he is. So when he exaggerates, when he says excessive way of saying about his rich, about his wealth, so he is boasting people about this, right? So he is boasting about his wealth, about he is rich a lot. That's it. Boast means gabar-se, se gabar, right? Take a look at this blog post. JANA in Japan. The title is Pet Peeves. So what are the 3 things does JANA get annoyed by in New York? Is she still annoyed by these things in Tokyo? Why or why not? Do these three things here annoy you? Why or why not? When I say pet peeve as the title of this blog post, what do you understand by it? What does pet peeve mean? Let's check. So, what does pet peeve mean? A pet peeve is something that a particular person finds especially annoying. It is defined as a frequent subject of complaint. Its first usage was around 1919. It stems from the word peevish. Peevish means ordinary or ill-tempered. A key aspect of a pet peeve is that it may well seem acceptable to others. So, let's remember, a pet peeve is a behavior, action someone does that annoys another person. Other ways to ask about pet peeves: what drives you crazy? What bothers you? What annoys you? What is something you can't stand? So, talking with food in your mouth is one of the worst pet peeves. Another example of pet peeve is when a person next to you is talking loudly on the phone in a very small space like this on the bus. The person's pet peeve is listening to the person laughing, talking loudly next to you. Another pet peeve is when people leave the toothpaste messy, like this one, you see, squeezing from the middle. Do you have this pet peeve? This one is one of the worst pet peeve that people complain a lot about. People really get annoyed when they go to the kitchen and they see the sink full of dishes. So, when people leave a lot of dishes to be cleaned, to be washed, this is a terrible pet peeve. Another very common pet peeve is when somebody changes the channel you were watching. That's another terrible one, right? When people litter, they throw trash on the streets, on the road. So they throw their trash anywhere but the trash can. Another is when you have terrible neighbors that make lots of noise, right? Like this. So when you have loud, noisy neighbors, it's something really bad. What about this one? Do you have pet peeve when you see people loud gun chewing? Do you feel irritated with that? What about the bubble popping next to you? Is it a pet peeve for you? What about nose picking in public? What about you? Can you think of any other pet peeves? Which pet peeves do you have? As we learn the meaning of pet peeves, let's continue reading the blog JANA in Japan. So, pet peeves. Most of you reading this blog know that I moved from New York to Tokyo a few months ago. I usually post or boast about learning Japanese and discovering Japanese food, but today I want to tell you about something I never expected would happen. All my usual pet peeves have disappeared. So, for instance, subway behavior drives me absolutely crazy at home in New York. But do you know what happens here in Tokyo? Everyone waits patiently as the train arrives and then moves to the center of the car. Even when the train is very crowded, no one blocks the door. People are so thoughtful. Another pet peeve I no longer have is bad-tempered salespeople. In pretty much every store I've been to here, the staff has always been polite and charming. Plus, anything you buy as a gift is beautifully wrapped. All the salespeople must have taken courses in gift wrapping and are so enthusiastic about it. Pet peeve number 3 is noise. At home, people are so noisy, but many of the neighborhoods in Tokyo are surprisingly quiet. That's because commercial activity is concentrated near the train station and because people really value peace and quiet. Of course, no place is perfect, and eventually I'll probably develop some new pet peeves. But if you hate noise and rude behavior, my advice to you is come, join me in Tokyo. So, do you remember the 3 questions before starting reading this blog? Number 1. What 3 things does Jana get annoyed by in New York? Remember that Jana moved from New York to Tokyo and she talks about the pet peeves she usually had there in New York. Do you remember the 3 things that Jana really gets annoyed in New York? Let's check the answers. Here we have subway behavior, bad-tempered salespeople, and noise. So these were the 3 things that Jana gets really irritated, annoyed in New York. Her pet peeves in New York, right? What about number 2? Is she still annoyed by these things in Tokyo? Why or why not? Let's check. The answer for number 2 is no. She is not annoyed anymore by these things in Tokyo because people in Tokyo are thoughtful and polite. So let's check now some expressions that we used in the blog, in the text. We're going to read the text again to check these answers. There is exercise number 3 asks, does a singular or plural verb form follow these words? So we have the words number 1, most of you, number 2, everyone, number 3, people, 4, staff, 5, anything, and 6, advice. Is it a singular or a plural verb that follow these words? Let's check the answers in the text. So let's take a look at the words. The first one is most. Most of you reading this blog know that I moved from New York to Tokyo a few months ago. So here we have the verb most of you, and we use the verb know. Is it in the singular or in the plural? Another word here that we have is everyone. Which verb do we use here? Singular or plural form? Everyone waits patiently as the train arrives and then moves to the center of the car. So everyone waits and then everyone moves. All the verbs used with the word everyone are in the third person singular. For he, she, it, we add s for the verb wait, waits, and move, moves. Alright? And right here we have another no one blocks the door. No one is indefinite pronoun. So no one, we use the verb in the third person singular. We add s for the verb block. So I say no one blocks. Do you understand here? What about with the word people? With the word people, I use the verb in the plural form. So I say people are so thoughtful, right? Right here in this second paragraph, we have in pretty much every store I've been to here, the staff has always been polite. The staff means all the people who work in that place. It has the idea of plural, but the verb used after staff is in the singular. We conjugate the verb have for all the persons except for he, she, it. So in the third person singular, I use has. So I say the staff has. The idea is plural, but the word agrees with the verb in the singular. Alright? The staff has. One more Example here is about the use of anything. Anything you buy as a gift is beautifully wrapped. So anything, I use the verb is. Anything is wrapped. So anything you buy as a gift is beautifully wrapped. The verb form used with the word anything is in the singular. Anything is, right? The last one here, in the last paragraph, I say, of course, no place is perfect. My advice to you is, so my advice is a noun. So what is the verb form used with the word advice? In the singular. Advice is uncountable noun. You don't count the word advice. You don't say, I have one advice to you. No, you say, I have some advice or I have a piece of advice to you, right? So let's check the answers of exercise number 3. Number 1, most of you, the plural form, the verb know. Most of you know, remember? Number 2, everyone waits and then moves. The verbs are in the singular form. Number 3, people are. So here the verb form is in the plural. Number 4, the step has. Has for the third person singular. He, she, it. We use the verb in the singular form. Number 5, anything. The verb is in the singular. Anything you buy as a gift is. And number 6, my advice to you is. My advice. Advice is an uncountable noun, and the verb form used for advice is in the singular, right? So let's check the answers of exercise number 3. Number 1, most of you, the plural form, the verb know. Most of you know, remember? Number 2, everyone waits and then moves. The verbs are in the singular form. Number 3, people are. So here the verb form is in the plural. Number 4, the step has. Has for the third person singular. He, she, it. We use the verb in the singular form. Number 5, anything. The verb is in the singular. Anything you buy as a gift is. And number 6, my advice to you is. My advice. Advice is an uncountable noun, and the verb form used for advice is in the singular, right? Exercise number 4. You're gonna listen to 2 friends from New York talking about Jana's blog post. What 2 pet peeves do they have? So listen and check.
4.3.
Did you see Jana's blog about pet peeves? Tokyo sounds like a great place to live. Just think. No rude sales clerks, no one blocking the door of your train car. I love it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You know what really gets on my nerves here in New York?
No, what?
Having to tip people for the holidays, you know, the New Year and all that. I don't mind tipping in restaurants. I know waiters work hard. But at the end of the year, even the hairdresser is someone who gets a tip for the holidays. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I know. And postal workers. Everyone in my building seems to tip the postal worker. And how often do we send mail these days anyway? With so much tipping, I'm always broke by January 1st.
Well, the New Year will be here before we know it. Speaking of Tokyo, I heard there's no tipping in Japan.
No. Let's move there. Do they wait in line in Tokyo? You know what my pet peeve is? The way some people behave when they're trying to get a cab. Now, I know more and more people use taxi apps these days. And I guess I could too. But I really like the old-fashioned yellow cabs.
So what's your pet peeve? Well, have you ever been about to get into a taxi when a group of people pushes in front of you? I can't believe anyone thinks that's okay. I have a confession to make.
So let's check. What pet peeves do they have? Did you recognize? The answers are tipping people for the holidays. Remember that she says she's gonna be broke? And another is about when people are pushing in front of you to get a cab, right? Let's pay attention to some examples from the listening. Here we have, listen.
In New York,
1,
even the hairdresser is someone who gets a tip for the holidays.
In number 1, the word someone is followed by the verb in the singular, someone who gets a tip. So, the same way for number 2, the word everyone is followed by the verb seems in the third person singular. When we talk about someone, everyone, no one, anything, something, these are indefinite pronouns and they are followed by the verbs in the singular form, right? Number 3, we have the word people. And I say that people is followed by the verb in the plural. More and more people use text apps these days, right? So let's listen to numbers 2 and 3.
2,
Everyone in my building seems to tip the postal worker.
3,
More and more people use taxi apps these days.
4,
Have you ever been about to get into a taxi when a group of people pushes in front of you?
As you can see, now we don't have the word people, we have the word a group of people, and the verb used after people is not in the plural. You see, different from number 3. In number 3 we said more and more people use, the verb is in the plural. But after the word a group of people, after these words we use the verb in the singular form, right? So I say a group of people pushes, right? And the last one,
5,
I can't believe anyone thinks that's okay.
again, after anyone, we have the verb form here in the singular. Anyone thinks, all right? So let's study and learn this grammar point. Subject, verb, agreement. We have some verbs here that agree according to the subject when they are countable and uncountable nouns. Examples. A lot of news articles are depressing. Here, articles are in the plural, so the verb is in the plural. Countable nouns, articles, right? Some of my friends' advice isn't very helpful. The word advice is uncountable, and I use the verb in the singular. With indefinite pronouns. Examples: one of them is a doctor. One is an indefinite pronoun. When I say one of them, the idea of them is plural, but it is agreeing with the verb is because I'm talking about one indefinite pronoun indicating the third person singular. One, someone is, right? One of them is. Next example, everyone needs help from other people. Here again, everyone as an indefinite pronoun, we agree with the verb in the third person singular, okay? Needs. So remember, all the indefinite pronouns, someone, no one, anyone, something, anything, nothing, everyone, everything, you see? All these indefinite pronouns, we agree with the verb in the singular, right? What about collective nouns? Example, that new import-export company is hiring workers. The word here, company, has the idea of plural. The idea is plural, is as a collective noun. But the verb is in the singular because the word company is a subject in the singular, right? And we have some asides that we call in Portuguese like aposto, right? Something that is like an example. Many people, including myself, don't save enough money. So in this situation, I'm talking about many people, including myself. I use the verb in the plural, all right? Because the subject agrees with the verb. People, plural. People don't save enough money, right? So let's check a little bit more. So let's review the grammar point. Subject to the verb agreement. Listen.
4.5.
Some of the things she said were very funny. The information he gave me was very surprising. One of you is lying. Everyone finds it hard to meet new people. A few of my friends want to go traveling together next year. My family is very understanding. My friends, as well as my mother, all think I should look for a new job.
So let's check the examples here in the grammar points. The first one is about countable and uncountable nouns. So countable nouns can be singular or plural. When they are plural, they are followed by the plural form of a verb. Uncountable nouns are always singular and are followed by the singular form of a verb. Let's check some examples. Your colleagues think you made the right decision. Not your colleagues thinks. You see, colleagues is a word in the plural, countable noun. So we use the verb in the plural form, right? Another example. Your advice was very helpful. Not your advices were very helpful. I never use advice in the plural because it is an uncountable noun. So the word advice is followed by the verb in the singular. Another grammar point about the verb agreement is with the indefinite pronouns. As we learned before, the indefinite pronouns one, everyone, no one, someone, and anyone are followed by a singular verb. Examples: everyone has been trying to help me find an apartment. Does anyone want to go to the beach this weekend? Each and each of are followed by a singular verb. However, many, many of, some of, both, both of, several, several of, and a few or a few of are all followed by a plural verb. So the examples are: each neighborhood has its own play area for children. Several of my friends have bought their own apartments recently. In informal conversation, singular words like everyone and everybody are sometimes followed by the word there plus a noun. However, in American English, this is not considered correct in writing. Examples: everyone disagrees with their parents at times. Spoken, informal. Everybody asks his or her parents for money on occasion. Usually written form, right? With the indefinite pronouns and the words each of, the verb is in the singular. But when we have many, many of, some of, both of, several, several of, a few of, remember to use the verb in the plural, right? This is about indefinite pronouns. Now, let's study a little about collective nouns. Collective nouns. In American English, collective nouns are generally singular. In British English, many collective nouns are frequently plural. Examples: my team is playing very well at the moment. The government wants to employ more elementary school teachers. Collective nouns referring to a group of individuals, however, are plural. Examples: The police are stopping cars along the highway. The Japanese are usually very polite. So remember, collective nouns referring to a group of individuals, we use the verb in the plural to agree with the subject, right? But when we talk about a collective idea like team, government, we use the verb in the singular. That's the difference, right? What about the asides? When a sentence has a comment in the middle as an aside, the verb always agrees with the subject of the sentence, not the noun in the aside. Alright? So, asides often begin with inclusive phrases like as well as, or in addition to, or exclusive phrases like aside from or apart from. Take a look at these examples. My sister, in addition to a lot of my friends, loves dancing. Here, the verb agrees with the subject. My sister, singular. The verb is in the singular. My sister loves dancing. She loves dancing, right? Not my sister, in addition to a lot of my friends, love dancing. Agreeing with the word friends. No, we don't agree with that. We agree with the subject. She. Alright? My sister. Another example. All of my teachers, apart from just one, are planning to come to my wedding. Not all of my teachers, apart from just one, is planning to come to my wedding. You see? Teachers is a word that is in the plural. Apart from just one, the idea is in the singular, but I agree with the subject, not the aside. You see? I agree with the word teachers. So I say all of my teachers are planning to come to my wedding. Let's practice about what we have learned. So take a look at the subjects from numbers 1 to 8 and choose the best verb form to agree with it. So read the text right now and check which verb form best matches the subjects from numbers 1 to number 8, right? So let's do it. Number 1, do you agree with the word pedestrians in the singular form or in the plural form? What about number 2? One of my friends was or were? Number 3, do you agree with the word riders? A few of these riders in the singular or in the plural? 4, some of them don't or some of them doesn't? Number 5, so a pedestrian risks or risk, singular or plural? Number 6, of course, pedestrians also needs or need, singular or plural form? Number 7, you have the expression each of us. Do you agree with each of us in the singular form or in the plural form? And the last one, number 8, my advice is or my advice are? In number 8 is the word advice followed by the verb in the singular or in the plural form. So let's check the answers. Here are the answers. Number 1, many pedestrians have, because I'm talking about a word in the plural, so I agree with the verb in the plural. They have, pedestrians have, right? Number 2, I say one of my friends was. I have one. One is indefinite pronoun equals to someone. Someone was. All the indefinite pronouns, I use the verb in the singular to agree with the subject, right? Next, number 3, I have the expression a few of these writers. When I'm talking about a few of, I agree with the word in the plural. So the verb is in the plural form. I say a few of these writers are. Alright? Number 4, I'm talking about some of them. Some of them, I'm talking about plural form, right? So I have followed by the word them in the plural. So I agree with the verb don't. You see? And number 5, it's in the singular, a pedestrian. And the verb that matches the subject here is in the singular form, risks. A pedestrian risks his or her life crossing the street, right? In number 6, I have the word pedestrians in the plural. So the verb that agrees with the subject here is in the plural form. Pedestrian also need. Pedestrians, plural. All right? Number 7, again the expression each of us. You see? Each of, we use the verb agreeing with the subject in the singular form. I say each of us has, right? And the last one, my advice, uncountable noun. We use the verb in the singular form to agree with the word that is in the singular, uncountable, right? Pronunciation time. Let's listen to the conversations right now and pay attention to the way that of is pronounced. Listen, we have 2 forms to pronounce of. Let's check.
4.6. 1. A.
Some of the trains here are incredibly crowded.
B. Yes, a lot of them are so bad I sometimes have to let 2 or 3 go by. 2. A.
Most of us have many pet peeves, don't you think?
B.
Yes, I think so. Maybe one person out of 1,000 people isn't annoyed by anything.
So that's the difference. You pronounce of when it's followed by a word starting with the vowel sound. And you pronounce o when it's followed by a word starting with a consonant. Alright? So here are the answers. When it is followed by a word starting with a vowel, you pronounce o. And when it's followed by a word starting with a consonant, you pronounce o. That's the difference, right? Let's practice a little bit more about the grammar point by paying attention to the verb agreement with the subject. So, take a look at the newspaper story about a pet peeve and choose the correct answers, right? Listen.
4.7.
Problem solved. In a small town in the UK, some families have found a unique solution to their pet peeve. Everyone in the town agrees that the speed of vehicles in residential areas is a danger. And what has made people so angry is that few drivers pay any attention to the speed limit. Now, even children as young as 10 have joined a unique speeding awareness campaign. People have been dressing in fluorescent jackets, and each of them points a hairdryer at the cars as they go by. This is a deterrent to drivers as the hairdryers look like police radar guns. The police like the idea, but their advice to families is to be careful when standing by the side of the road. However, the local community still feels that the solution to the problem is to install more speed cameras in built-up areas.
Let's check the answer. Number 1, some families have plural form, right? Number 2, everyone in the town agrees. Remember, everyone in definite pronoun, we use the verb in the singular form, right? Number 3, we use the verb in the singular is because I'm agreeing with the subject is speed. The speed of vehicles, right? Number 4, we agree with drivers. Few drivers pay. We use the verb in the plural, right? Next, number 5, I'm talking about the subject, children. Even children as young as 10 have. Children, plural. So I agree with the verb have, not has, right? In the plural. Number 6, I'm agreeing with the word people, so I use the verb in the plural form, right? Number 7, I have the expression each of them, and here I use the singular form like the indefinite pronouns, remember? So I say each of them points, right? Number 8, the word the police is a collective word, right? And the idea here is in the plural, alright? So I agree with the verb like in the plural form, not likes, alright? Number 9, I'm talking about their advice to families is. I'm talking about advice, subject. So the verb is in the singular form, right? Because I'm talking about an uncountable noun, alright? And number 10, the local community. The local community. I'm talking about singular form. So the verb used to agree is feels in the singular form. Did you get it? Going ahead in Unit 4, Lesson B, I'm talking about some essential tips for getting along. What is the meaning of get along? Remember? When I say that you get along well with someone, it means that you have a good relationship. So, before reading these texts, we are going to study a little about a skill, an ability when you are reading a text and you are identifying attitude. When reading a text, try to figure out the writer's attitude towards the topic. Attitude is not always explicitly stated, so try to understand the details of the text first, and then consider how the writer feels about the topic in general. The first one, look for language that expresses opinions and feelings, which is often more explicitly stated than attitude. Second, if there are questions with the text, look for keywords in the questions and find synonyms for these in the text. Then, read that part of the text in detail. So let's start the reading. Friends and colleagues, essential tips for getting along. Sometimes we come up against problems that we can't work out on our own. Well, a problem shared is a problem had. Well, a problem shared is a problem had, as some of my British friends like to say. So, whether I'm with a new acquaintance or an old friend, I always take the opportunity to give the person a hand if I can. The best kind of help is a favor you do for someone with no expectation of a favor in return. Doing people favors not only gives you a warm feeling inside, but it also sends the message that you can be trusted because you have that person's welfare in mind. If I were you, I'd offer help whenever I can because, as we say, one good turn deserves another. You never know. Your generosity may be repaid one day when you most need help from someone else. You never know. Your generosity may be repaid one day when you most need help from someone else. After all, no man is an island. This was Martin. Remember some expressions here. Work out on your own. It means to try to solve a situation by yourself without any help, right? And now, what does Magda say about an essential tip for getting along? Let's check. The other day, I was in a face-to-face meeting with a colleague, and she'd sent 3 texts before I could even finish what I was saying. It drives me crazy when people don't listen, especially when they don't even look you in the eye. I was brought up to listen to people in order to understand them, not just in order to reply to them. If you really listen, you'll find it makes a big difference in understanding what motivates them, what worries them, and what they're enthusiastic about. You just have to ignore everyone around you. Ignore your phone and ignore that voice in your head that's thinking about how to respond. In no time, you'll find yourself connecting with people significantly better than before. So let's check some vocabulary here. Remember that the contraction of she'd sent here is the contraction of the past perfect tense. She had sent. So this was something that Magda didn't like. She was talking face-to-face meeting with a colleague and she had already sent 3 texts before she could even finish that conversation. And that situation drives her crazy when people don't care, don't pay attention to what she is talking about, right? We pay attention here because we are using if, conditional sentence. If plus the verb in the present, if you listen. And the other sentence I use, you, contraction of you will. You'll find it, alright? That's the first conditional sentence. Now let's check which essential tip for getting along Nandy is talking about. Are you familiar with the expression 6 degrees of separation? It's the theory that every person on the planet is connected to everyone else by a chain of no more than 5 personal connections. I'm not sure it's completely true, but there's definitely an element of truth in it. So, when you meet someone new, find out about the person. Ask where he or she is from, where he or she went to school, and where he or she works. You may well find that you have a mutual friend. Try comparing interests too. If you're both sports fans, this is a great way to connect. I'm into bike riding and I often connect with others using a cycling app called Strava. Similarly, if you both like similar music, share playlists via Spotify. For business contacts, why not send a message or share an article on LinkedIn? We live in a connected world, and you just have to find the connections, right? Continue here talking about the conditional sentence that appears in the text. As you can see, I say, if you're both sports fans, this is a great way to connect. If you're, contraction of you are, verb in the present. If plus the verb in the present. And then we have another sentence in the present. I'm talking about the zero conditional where both sentences are in the simple present tense, right? Another sentence using conditional is if you both like similar music, share playlists via Spotify. So if you like, the verb is in the present. And the other sentence I'm talking about imperative verb, like suggesting something, alright? This is another way to use conditional sentences, right? So let's go ahead in number 4. So this is Angela talking to us about an essential tip for getting along. Let's check. Do you ever find yourself having a conversation, hearing someone say something pretty shocking, and wondering why on earth the person just said that? I do. And when it happens, I try to keep in mind where he or she is coming from. I'll ask myself something like, why does the person feel that way? Why is he or she saying that? Obviously, you're allowed your own opinion and you're not obliged to agree with everything someone says. But don't argue for the sake of it. That just causes friction. Try not to criticize or prove the other person wrong. Everyone is different, and if you want to get along with people, remember that someone else's experience isn't necessarily the same as yours. Try putting yourself in the other person's shoes. So let's check here about Angela's tip for getting along. Check the vocabulary that we have. Pretty shocking. When I use pretty as an adverb, it is to talk about a little shocking, right? We have casual in number 5. Take a look at the essential tip for getting along that he has for us. Having a laugh is essential, and I find humor is a great way to break the ice, ease tension, and get along with people. You can't force humor, though. In other words, you can't just switch on your funny side. Otherwise, it might come out as awkward, and you could risk upsetting people, which you have to be very careful about. Humor is best when it comes from a laid-back and spontaneous place. I'd also be careful about what or who you make fun of, because so much humor is based on being unkind to others. If you wanted to ruin a friendship, an ill-considered comment, humorous or not, would be the perfect way to go about it. The safest way to enjoy humor is to make fun of yourself. And I don't recommend telling jokes. Jokes are not the same as a sense of humor, and it's very hard to tell them well. If people wanted to hear a good joke, they'd go to a comedy club. If people wanted to hear a good joke, they'd go to a comedy club. So let's check the vocabulary here. Remember, though in the end of a sentence has the same idea as but, connecting the two sentences, talking about opposites, right? Awkward means something embarrassing, and upsetting people means irritating, annoying people. Now take a look at the conditional sentence here. If you wanted to ruin a friendship, an ill-considered comment, humorous or not, would be the perfect way to go about it. If plus the verb in the past, if you wanted, and then the other sentence I use, an ill-considered comment would be, I use would plus the verb in the infinitive. So this is the second conditional sentence when we use the structure of if plus the verb in the past, and the other sentence, the main sentence, we use would plus the verb in the infinitive. Another sentence here about conditional, second conditional is, if people wanted to hear a good joke, they'd go to a comedy club. If people wanted, past tense of the verb want, if plus the verb in the past, and the main sentence we use, would plus the verb in the infinitive. They'd go, it's the contraction of they would go, right? That is the second conditional sentence. Exercise number 4, you're going to complete the sentences using the correct form of the verbs in the parentheses. But remember to check in the text. So, number 1, if you really listen, you using the verb find. It makes a big difference. Number 2, if you using the verb want to get along with people, remember that. Number 3, if I were you, I using the verb offer, help whenever I can. 4, if you both like similar music, using the verb share, playlists. And number 5, if people, using the verb want, to hear a good joke, they'll go to a comedy club. So let's try to complete the sentences here and check the answers. Here are the answers according to the text. Number 1, if you really listen, you'll find it makes a big difference. Number 2, if you want to get along with people, remember that. Number 3, I have if plus the verb in the past, and the main sentence I use, I'd, contraction of I would, plus the verb in the infinitive. 4, if plus the verb in the present, if you both like, and in the main sentence I use imperative, similar to number 2. In number 5, I use if plus the verb in the past, and in the main sentence I use they'd go, right? That is, contraction of they would go. So let's study a little bit more about conditional sentences. So this is another grammar spot. This one about text builder involves conditionals for advice and suggestions. So let's review the conditional sentences. But right now we're going to emphasize the use of conditionals for advice and suggestions. Let's remember zero conditional. If plus the verb in the present. In the other main sentence I use present. So in both sentences, zero conditional, we use simple present tense. Example, if you're both sports fans, this is a great way to connect. In first conditional, we have people will recall a conversation as being more interesting if you ask questions. We have the sentence, conditional part of the sentence, if plus the verb in the present. In the other sentence, the main sentence I use, will, plus the verb in the infinitive, will recall. About the second conditional, remember we use if plus the verb in the past, and in the main sentence we use would plus the verb in the infinitive. Example, if you wanted to ruin a friendship, an ill-advised comment would be the perfect way to go about it. You see? So let's review about conditional sentences. Take a look at this example. The son tells his mom, if I do my homework, I'll get good grades. If I get good grades, you'll send me to college. If I go to college, I'll graduate and get a job. If I get a job, I might get fired. If I get fired, I could go bankrupt and lose everything. That's why I didn't do my homework. In these examples, we have conditional sentences. If I do, I'll get. If I get, you send. If I go, I'll graduate. If I get a job, I might get fired. If I get fired, I could go. The first one, the zero conditional. The zero conditional is formed in this way. If plus the present simple, and the main sentence I use, present simple. Example, if you heat water, it boils. If you heat, if plus the verb in the present simple. The main sentence, boils, in the present simple. So, when we use zero conditional, we describe rules and situations where one event always follows the other, so they are related to the others, right? Another example. If you want to study in the USA, you have to pass an exam in English. If you want it plus the present simple, you have to. Have to is in the present simple of the main verb, right? So let's get more examples. Zero condition, remember, if plus condition plus result. If plus the verb in the simple present tense and the result in the simple present tense. When do we use zero condition? General truths, habits, real world and scientific facts, and etc. Right? So pay attention to the examples we have here. If it rains, the ground gets wet. If I cry, I have a headache. If you mix yellow and blue, you get green. If you are tired, you go to bed early. If you leave the object, it drops. If you pour oil on water, it floats. If you smoke, you get old early. Remember this, zero conditional. The structure is if plus the present simple in the main verb in the present simple tense, right? They use it to talk about things that are always true, like a scientific fact. Examples, if you freeze water, it turns into ice. And if you heat water at 100 degrees, it boils. If students miss an exam, the professor fails them. If students miss an exam, the professor fails them. If my wife has a cold, I usually catch it. I get tired if I work too much. If I'm late for dinner, start eating without me. You see? So all the sentences are in common using if plus the present, and the main sentence I use the verb in the present. Alright? So remember that zero conditional. In both sentences I use the simple present tense. And the idea is to talk about things that are always true, like a fact, a scientific fact, right? Now let's pay attention to the first conditional. The first conditional is formed in this way. If plus the present simple. In the main sentence I use will plus the verb in the infinitive. Example, if you go to the zoo, you will see the lions. If you go, if plus present simple. You will see, we use will plus the infinitive, right? So we use the first conditional to talk about possible future events that depend on other future events, right? Example, if I pass my exams, my parents will buy me a car. What is the condition to get a car from my parents? I have to pass my exam. So the condition is if I pass my exams. You see? If plus the verb in the present in the conditional part of the sentence, and will plus the verb in the infinitive, will buy in the main sentence. Other forms in the first conditional we have, if we save enough money, we can go on holiday. The use of can instead of will, right? If you see him, tell him to give me a ring. So we use if plus the verb in the present, and in the other main sentence we use imperative. Alright? So remember, the structure of first conditional sentence is if plus the simple present, and the main sentence I use the simple future. That is, the subject plus will or won't in the negative plus the verb in the bare form, the basic form, right? Infinitive. The usage of first conditional is when we want to talk about possibilities in the present or in the future. Examples: if it rains, I will stay at home. If I wake up late, I will miss the bus. And if it's sunny, we'll go to the park. If Juan leaves, Paula will be sad. If I find your email, I will send you the picture. If you study hard, you will pass your exams. So remember, first conditional sentence, we use if plus the verb in the present, and the main sentence I use will, or contraction of will, that is apostrophe double L, and the verb in the infinitive form, the basic form, right? More examples about first conditional. Positive. If I study, I will pass my exams. If plus the present, main sentence I use will plus the infinitive. In the negative, I say, if I don't study, I won't pass my exams. So, the same way, if plus the present, but in the negative, and in the main sentence I use won't, negative form of will not, right? Contraction. In the question, I say, if I study, will I pass my exams? Or you can invert the order, no problems. You can say, I will pass my exams if I study, for the affirmative. I won't pass my exams if I don't study. In question, will I pass my exams if I study? But the difference is, when I start the sentence by using the conditional part of the sentence, I have to use comma. That means vírgula after the conditional sentence, right? But when I invert the order, I don't need to use the comma. Alright? Another example. If he studies, he will pass his exams. Negative. If he doesn't study, he won't pass his exams. For questions. If he studies, will he pass his exams? It is the same sentence but now for the person he, right? To finish, let's review the second conditional. The second conditional is formed in this way. We have if plus the past simple in this sentence, that is the conditional part. And in the main sentence we use would or could or might plus the verb in the infinitive. Example, if I had enough money, I would buy a new car. Here I'm using if plus the verb in the past, had, past tense of had. And the main sentence I use would plus the verb in the infinitive, would buy, right? We use the second conditional to talk about imagined, impossible, or unlikely events in the future, something imaginary, not real, unreal situations, right? Example, if I had enough money, I'd love to travel around Europe, or I would love to travel around Europe. Remember that I'd is the contraction of I would. The sentence refers to the future. If I had enough money, but I don't have now, so it's unreal, it's imaginary situation, right? Example number 2, we use the conditional sentences to talk about impossible present situations. Example, if I were you, I would study more. But can I study more right now in the moment? It's not possible, right? So let's remember. Second conditional, the structure. If plus the past simple. In the main sentence I use the conditional future, right? So we have imaginary situations in the present or future. This is the usage of second conditional. Okay? And remember, in the structure is that when we use the verb to be, remember that we use were for all the persons in American English. In British English, you can use was for the persons I, he, she, it, right? Remember, when we talk about second conditional, we are talking about something that is unreal, imaginary, right? The examples are, if I won $1,000,000, I would buy a new car. The question is, do I have $1,000,000 right now? No, it is something imaginary, right? If I won $1,000,000, you see? If plus the verb in the past, won is the past tense of win, and the main sentence I use the conditional using would plus the infinitive, would buy, right? Another example, if I were you, I would quit smoking. Another, if I were the president, I would lower taxes. You see? Here we are using the verb to be in the past simple. And remember that for the person I, the past tense of I am is I was. But in conditional sentences for American English, we use were for all the persons. So you say, if I were you, if I were the president, right? And the main sentence I use, would plus the infinitive. Next example we have, they would stay longer if they had more time. I inverted the position of the conditional part of the sentence after the main sentence. But I can say, if they had more time, comma, they would stay longer. You see, it's not a problem if I invert the position of each sentence, right? The meaning is the same. The only difference is the punctuation. I use comma right after the conditional part of the sentence, right? But when I invert, when I start the sentence using the main sentence, I don't use comma before if, right? Another example here, if I won $1,000,000, I could stop working. If I had more free time, I could travel around the world. The question is, do I have free time right now? So it is just an imaginary situation that I'm talking about, right? Let's compare the first conditional versus the second conditional. In the first conditional, we talk about something that is possible, that is real, and the structure is if plus the present, and the main sentence I use will. The second conditional, we talk about something that is unreal, that it's not possible, that is imaginary, right? The structure is if plus the past tense of the verb, and the main sentence I use would plus the infinitive of the verb, right? Examples of first conditional and second conditional. Comparing. If I find her, I'll tell her that I love her. Maybe I will find her that it is something possible to happen, right? And the second one, if I found her, I'd tell her that I love her. But is it possible? It's improbable. I will not find her. That's the difference, you see? So, figure out first and second conditional. First conditional, real and possible. If Sally runs fast, she will win the race. Present simple, runs. If plus the present simple. The main sentence I use, will plus the infinitive of the verb win. Will win, right? Sally can run fast, so there is a real possibility she will win the race, right? The second conditional is something unreal, impossible, hypothetical, just imaginary situation, right? Example, if Sally ran fast, she would win the race. If plus the past simple, and the main sentence I use would plus the infinitive of the verb. Sally can't run fast, so there isn't a real possibility she will win the race, right? Remember, both conditionals talk about the present or the future. The difference is about probability, not time. So the second conditional is imaginary, hypothetical, unreal. Whereas first conditional, we talk about something real, possible. So let's practice a little. Here we have some exercise that you're going to complete with the correct conditional sentence, right? Remember, when we use if plus present, I use zero conditional, the verb in the present, or first conditional using will plus the verb in the infinitive. But if I use if plus the verb in the past, remember that in the main sentence I use would plus the verb in the infinitive, the second condition. So let's check. The first one, if you ask him, you to the airport, you have to complete using take. The view was wonderful. If I a camera with me, I'll take some photographs. So pay attention that you have to use the verb have in the conditional part of the sentence. Next one, you know that I can't afford this ring. If I earned more, you the whole world. So you need to use the verb buy. Pay attention that in this sentence we use if plus the verb in the past. If I earned, right? Next, it's a pity I can't go to the concert with you next Saturday. If I weren't so sick, I there with you. You need to use the verb to be. Pay attention again because I'm talking about if plus the verb in the past. Remember which conditional that we use here? And the last one, if I do the dishes now, you the laundry. So, pay attention to the context and organize your ideas about checking which conditional sentence, zero, first, or second, is the best one that matches the sentences to complete them, right? Checking your answers. Let's go ahead. If you ask him, he will take you to the airport. Remember, we have if plus the verb in the present, and the main sentence I use will plus the verb in the infinitive, right? The view was wonderful. If I have a camera with me, I'll take some photographs. Here we have if plus the verb in the present, in the main sentence will plus infinitive of the verb, right? You know that I can't afford this ring. If I earned more, here we are using if plus the verb in the past, so I complete by using in the main sentence would plus infinitive. I would buy you the whole world, right? I can also use contraction. I'd buy you the whole world, right? It's a pity I can't go to the concert with you next Saturday. If I weren't so sick, if plus the verb in the past, so the main sentence I use would plus the verb in the infinitive. I would be there. I would contract this if I wanted. I'd be there, right? The last one, if I do the dishes now, you do the laundry, okay? If I do, if plus the present, the other sentence I use, simple present. So, these conditional sentences are divided into zero, first, or second conditional. Can you identify? The first one, zero, first, or second. If plus present, will plus the infinitive, we use this when we talk about first conditional. The second one, again, if plus present, in the main sentence, will plus the infinitive, first conditional. The third example here, if the past tense and would plus the infinitive, we're talking about the second conditional. The same way, it's a pity I can't go to the concert with you next Saturday. If I weren't, if plus past, so sick, I would be there. Okay? Second conditional. And the last one, in both sentences we use the verbs in the present. So this is zero conditional. Thank you for your participation, for your attention, right? See you in the next video class.